Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
Hey, Tom, it's our fun unit, and it's going to last for 2 programs. Yay! This is a fun English topic, actually. We're going to be talking about amazing alliteration. Look at the title. This is an example of alliteration. Attract attention with amazing alliteration. Yeah, it's a fun thing you can use if you're a writer, especially. We see it a lot with prose, with speeches, with poetry. If you want to grab people's attention, use alliteration. You just start each word with the same sound. It doesn't necessarily have to be, for example, if my sound is S, you don't have to use S's. You can use a soft C, as we call it. So we're going to talk about this for the next couple of days. In tomorrow's program, we're going to be talking about some very famous expressions that use alliteration. We're going to have fun. Yeah.
We certainly are, so let's get to it. Let's read through the contents of today's lesson, and we'll be right back. Readers, ready yourselves to recognize a series of certain repeated sounds at the start of words in a sentence. This literary device is alliteration, and you just read 2 different examples of it. The first sentence has 4 words starting with an R sound and 5 that start with an S sound. Alliteration is concerned only with identical sounds used at the beginning of words, not which letters make them. So, the soft C sound in certain is considered an S sound. The rhythm and repetition of alliteration makes phrases memorable. It's often utilized because it affects the mood or tone of prose, poetry, and lyrics. For example, the S and SH sounds in She Sells Seashells by the Seashore tongue twister, which was based on a song, highlight the soothing, smooth sound of the sea. You'll encounter alliteration in many works of literature and speeches. The 3 witches in William Shakespeare's play Macbeth proclaim, "Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air." The repeated F sound gives the line a fetid feeling as opposed to flowing, fresh air. Alliteration can also be used to call attention to a certain subject. In his famous I Have a Dream speech, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted his children to not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. King used the repeated hard C sound to draw attention to his assertion that racism or judgment based on skin color must be replaced by judgment based on one's individual integrity and character.
So, readers, ready yourselves to recognize a series of certain repeated sounds at the start of words in a sentence. This sentence has some fun alliteration. Readers, ready yourselves. Readers, ready, of course, both have the R sound at the beginning. Ready can actually be used as a verb, as you see here. Ready yourself. Usually we say, oh, are you ready? But if you ready yourself, it just means get yourself set to do something or hear something. Ready yourself to hear some amazing alliteration. So we're going to recognize a series of certain repeated sounds, and that's what alliteration's about. So this is called a literary device. This isn't an actual device that you hold in your hand, like your cell phone or a battery charger, something like this. This is more figurative. It's a literary method that you can use in your writing. Literary just means something that's related to writing or the study of literature or the study of creative writing, especially the kind that is considered to be valuable, that you keep around for a while.
That's right, and so this is a literary device. It's called alliteration, and again, you have the same sound at the beginning of words to attract attention with amazing alliteration. So again, the title there has 4 words with the A sound. Attract attention with amazing alliteration. And, of course, we've also got this first sentence here that features alliteration as well. As it says here, you just read 2 different examples of it. The first sentence has 4 words starting with an R sound. Okay, so readers, ready yourselves to recognize a series of certain repeated sounds at the start of words in a sentence. So that's an example there. It has 4 words that start with an S sound. Excuse me, they start with an R sound. And then it also has 5 words that start with an S sound. So readers, ready yourselves to recognize a series of certain repeated sounds at the start of words in a sentence. Okay, so I kind of emphasize those to make sure you understand that you can stress those words to get alliteration. And again, we've got some words starting with R in that sentence and with S. And I suppose that might be a useful tool when learning a language. And that also reminds me, of course, of tongue twisters.
Yeah.
A lot of tongue twisters involve the same sound at the beginning of the words, so they become hard to say. There's only one I know in Chinese, 四十只石狮子. I think I screwed that up, but basically I think you all know what that is. 44只石狮子. That's hard to say for a non-native speaker, but you get the idea.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Actually, you'll look at nursery rhymes and find that a lot of them are examples of alliteration. Why? Because when little kids are learning how to speak, it's really good for them to have these tongue twisters, as we call them. The one that I thought of when I was reading this was Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? I made 2 mistakes. So those are really good to warm up your mouth. If you're an actor, you may have seen actors backstage using some of these alliterations, these nursery rhymes that were kind of tongue twisters, because it gets your face and your tongue ready to do a good job.
Now, alliteration is concerned only with identical sounds used at the beginning of words, not which letters make them. So, yes, indeed, notice above there we have the word certain. That is spelled with a C, but then we've got sound spelled with an S, but still they have the S sound.
Yeah.
So the soft C sound in certain is considered an S sound. This sentence here also has quite a lot of alliteration in it. So the soft C sound in certain is considered an S sound. So you got lots of S sounds there, and it kind of helps you remember things more quickly that way.
Yeah, I think this is a really clever beginning to this article. So we have to say it was remarkable that Rebecca wrote this. So kind of fun. Now, moving on. If you have something that's identical, it's exactly the same as something else. We use it a lot when we talk about twins who were born the same time, the same day. Some of them are identical, some aren't. Some can be fraternal, but if you're identical, you look very, very similar to either your sister or brother. So yeah, these have identical sounds at the beginning of the words, but you don't necessarily have the same letters, which Tom just explained. So moving on to paragraph 2, it says the rhythm and repetition of alliteration makes phrases memorable. It sure does. When you talk about repetition, you're just talking about repeating something. Repetition, of course, is the noun form of the verb to repeat. And if you repeat something, you say it again and again and again. So there's also a rhythm to the sounds, which makes it very fun too. You notice that when Tom was doing the Chinese saying, and I did the Peter Piper picked a peck of. There's this rhythm to it, which makes it really fun for kids. And because it's a challenge, I've always found little kids really love to learn these alliteration nursery rhymes. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to teach jazz chants all the time in English classes to get people to establish a rhythm with things. It's fun. And, of course, singing songs is a good way to learn a language as well. So, again, the rhythm and repetition of alliteration makes phrases memorable, which means you're going to remember it for a long time.
True.
Hey, my vacation to Bali was memorable. Now, it's often used because it affects the mood or tone of prose, poetry, and lyrics. Prose is basic writing, like stories. Poetry, of course, has rhythm and rhyme, and lyrics, of course, are the words to songs.
Yeah, prose doesn't have that rhyming technique to it. It's just like pretty straightforward. As Tom said, a story is a good example of prose. So, for example, the S and SH sounds in She Sells Seashells by the Seashore, tongue twister, that one's hard, which was based on a song, probably a nursery rhyme long ago, highlight the soothing, smooth sound of the sea.
Ooh, there's alliteration there.
Yeah,
very clever.
Rebecca's really done a great job with this. She's our writer on this. So, yeah, tongue twister is just those nursery rhymes, those sayings we've been giving examples of that are really kind of tough to say, especially fast. Anyone can do them very slowly, but try it faster and faster and faster, and it's tough. If you highlight something, you draw attention to it. We have a highlighter pen in different colors like yellow and green and blue. When you're studying your textbook, you might use a highlighter to highlight sections that you want to really study hard or to remember for a test. And if something's soothing, it just makes you feel good. Something that's soothing is music that you really like. Maybe you've had a hard day and you want to play some soothing music. I find going to the beach and listening to the ocean and the waves come in is very soothing. It kind of relaxes you, takes away some of your stress.
I like the sound of wind blowing through trees as well. That's
yeah.
fun, and that can be quite soothing, very relaxing. And so, yes, indeed, we go to the seashore to watch She Sells Seashells by the Seashore, and of course can be quite soothing and smooth to listen to the sound of the sea. I hope that helped you remember this lesson, and we've got some more things to say to you in just a couple of seconds, but right now we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天要来谈谈押头韵 alliteration。 所谓的押头韵就是一个单字它最前面的发音跟别的单字都是一样的时候，那么这些单字组出来的句子就可以押头韵耶。例如在第一段第一句，这句话其实就有好几个单字都有押头韵。 Readers, ready yourselves to recognize a series of certain repeated sounds at the start of words in a sentence. 你没有注意到有押头韵，因为我们都会着重在文字的理解。好，但是押头韵特别注意哦，我们只管发音，不管字母。所以我们先看一下第一段第4句的地方，这里有特别讲，他说 alliteration is concerned only with identical sounds。 这个 identical sounds 两个字可以先画起来，所以也就是说押头韵只管同样的声音，逗点之后 not which letters make them， 而不是哪一个制造出来或哪一个拼出来的那个所谓的字母。这就是我们刚刚讲的那一个所谓押头韵，特别要注意都有关声音。那到底刚刚那句话押了什么东西呢？我们看到有几个 R 呢？有4个 R， Readers, Ready, Recognize, Repeated， 而且还有5个单字押 S 的音哦，例如 Series, Certain, Sounds, Start, Sentence。 所以我们特别注意certain 这个字 C-E-R-T-A-I-N， 我们只管发音，不是 curtain 是 certain， 所以尽管它是 C 开头，还是押头韵。好，它到底为什么要押头韵呢？其实头韵的节奏啊，还有重复，这种会让整个片语或者是所谓的句子是非常令人难忘的。因为不管是在散文、诗歌啊、歌词啊、那些文学作品啊、演讲当中，其实都可以感受到押头韵带来的情绪或者是语气。例如在第2段有举一个例子， She sells seashells by the seashore。 那当然这是一个 tongue twister 啦，就是一个绕口令，但是这样子的绕口令的 sh 其实跟海的那一种舒缓啊、平静啊、海浪的声音是有关系的。好，那么我们再念一次这个 tongue twister， 他在海边卖贝壳 She sells seashells by the seashore。 好，真的是太难念了。总而言之呢，重点是头韵，这种大海舒缓平静的声音。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It's our fun unit, and we're talking about some amazing alliteration. This literary device that we use puts the same series of sounds together, and the challenge is to say them and not mess up. Sometimes you can do it quite slowly and get through it okay, but as you speed up, as your tempo increases, it gets more difficult. But it's awfully fun, and I've noticed that kids really enjoy learning English if they have a challenge like this. If you put some music to it, it's even more fun. I was saying to one of my friends the other day, when I was growing up, we didn't use chants to learn music when I was growing up. We just sang songs. But chants are fun because you don't have to really learn a melody. You just have to say the sounds to the rhythm. I think it's a terrific way to learn English.
It is indeed, and you will encounter alliteration in many works of literature and speeches. We're going to give you a couple of examples now. Let's talk about Shakespeare. If you've ever read Macbeth or seen the play, you'll know that it has three witches that come out at the beginning. The three witches in William Shakespeare's play Macbeth proclaim, "Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air." So basically this means that all that is fair, that is good, is actually foul, and all foul, bad things are actually good. That's what witches think, and those things hover or float through the fog and filthy air. My goodness, we've got a lot of F sounds there. Fa-fa-fa-fa-fa-fa.
Yeah, kind of fun. I love those witches. They're really bad. They're very evil. And it's usually quite dramatic. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. This is a fun one to practice your F sounds. I know that some of our Nambu Taiwanese friends have difficulty with the F sound. I know a couple of older gentlemen at church who say hu qian, which is always kind of fun for me. If something's hovering, it's not moving and it's in the air. One particular little bird that hovers is the hummingbird, and it flaps its wings so quickly that it looks like it's not moving and it's just kind of staying there in the air. I love those things. And if something's filthy, guys, it's very, very dirty. If you want to emphasize how dirty something is, use filthy. Oh, my mom sometimes would come into our bedrooms growing up and she'd say, clean this up. Your room is filthy. So filthy is a great word. The repeated F sound gives the line a fetid feeling as opposed to flowing fresh air. Fetid is a pretty advanced vocabulary word. It just means really stinky, really awful smelling. And of course, nobody likes really bad smelling air. You want that flowing fresh air.
And there's a bunch of F sounds, the fetid feeling as opposed to flowing fresh air. Indeed, no one likes foul-smelling air. We like fresh air.
We do.
And alliteration can also be used to call attention to a certain subject. Okay, so let's talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In his famous speech, I Have a Dream, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted his children to not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So there is some alliteration going on there in Dr. King's speech there. Let's talk about some of the alliteration there. King used the repeated hard C sound, which is k, to draw attention to his assertion that racism or judgment based on skin color must be replaced by judgment based on one's individual integrity and character. So that's the example there of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech there. Again, he's using the hard C sound. We talked about the soft C sound earlier with the word certain, but now we're talking about the hard C, the K sound. And, of course, we've got color in there. And yes, indeed, he used that in this sentence here, not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
You know what? Before we move on, I wanted to go back and look at this vocabulary word, opposed. This vocabulary word is a way to compare and contrast two different things. So we've got that really stinky feeling being contrasted with flowing fresh air. So instead of saying gives the line a fetid feeling, in contrast to the flowing fresh air, you can use as opposed to. So it's another writing device, literary device you can use to write. So that's how you use opposed to. I prefer rice as opposed to noodles. So you're just comparing and contrasting two different things. So moving back to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah, he uses some great hard C sounds there. Color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This is a very famous speech. I think worldwide, a lot of people know this speech. Americans grew up with it, so this particular phrase is just a memory for us. We have it all memorized. I think most of us could repeat this particular line. We're only sharing a part of it, but we could repeat that entire line from memory just because we hear it so often.
We do. It's often quoted.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the quotes of Malcolm X better, but lots of people like Martin Luther King's speeches. They're very inspirational, etc., etc. And I believe he delivered this speech at the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. way back in the 1960s. Was it 64 or so? I should know this as an American, but again, the point is, in this particular line of his speech, he did use the repeated hard C. And, of course, he had this assertion, which means that's your opinion that you want other people to know about and accept. He had this assertion that racism or judgment based on skin color must be replaced by judgment based on one's individual integrity and character. So, first of all, let's talk about racism. That just means you are basically opposed to other people because of their race, and you think they're inferior to you. That's what racism is. And, of course, racism is always part of the discussion in the United States. Does racism still exist? And if it does, who's being racist to who? Racism, of course, is the noun, and the adjective is to be racist. Oh, what you said is racist.
We kind of flipped it on its head. Nowadays in America, you hear a lot of people saying your color is more important than your character. But since we don't have any responsibility how we're born, what race we are. I love that Dr. Martin Luther King said it's your character, not your color, that's important. We don't judge people by their exterior, right? We judge them by their characters, who they are, their integrity, their personalities, things like that. So this is a great line if you want to memorize something from history that has a big impact. So, yeah, when we say someone's asserting something, we say here, this is his assertion. It's a really confident statement, and it's usually used with a lot of force, and that's why he wanted people to really remember what he had to say. Stop judging people by their race, their color, and instead look at people and judge them by their character, who they are, and what they do, not how they're born. We can't control that at all. So, yeah, it was a great example, though, getting back to alliteration, of the use of the hard C. I bet you're going to be looking more closely at these famous speeches in the future and see if you can see if they're using any alliteration. It's a good literary tool for speeches in particular, because speeches, the speechwriter always wants you to be able to walk away with one memorable line that sticks in your memory that you won't forget.
Indeed, and you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to use every word or have every word with the same letter. Then it sounds silly and you lose your credibility that way. So he just had maybe 3 words in there to help people remember this particular line from his speech. And we have one more word to talk about here, integrity. That means you are very strong and you have good moral principles and things like that. So that's more important than the color of your skin if you have integrity and if you have a good character. Let's all live by those words. And hey, think of ways to express yourself using alliteration as well. We'll talk some more about this in our next program. But for now, we need to hear from our Chinese teacher.
当然还有其他的例子啦，比如说像莎士比亚的戏剧《马克白》里面有3个女巫就宣称了这一句话 Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air。 当然我们听起来好像就是有一个节奏，但是其实在这里重复的头韵这个 F 的音会为台词带来一种恶臭的感觉。这个部分的话呢，像我们英文不是我们的 native， 我们就不会觉得 F 有哪里有臭吗？这样怪怪对不对？没有啦，因为其实像 filthy 啊，还有 fog、foul， 像这些字啊，其实就是所谓的这个丑啊、臭啊这样子的意思。所以其实押头韵当然会跟本身对于这个语言你的认识度、熟悉度是有关系，还有它的字义也会带来不一样的一种语言。好，那么接着呢，我们就来看押头韵有另外一个功能。其实押头韵可以引起对某一种主题的注意哦。例如，我们在这个马丁路德金恩博士，他在一个 I have a dream 这样子梦想当中，因为特别提到的是一个肤色嘛，所以他希望孩子不要因为肤色被批评，而是因为他的性格内涵而去被评断。Not to be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character。 有没有注意到那个 k 的那个很硬的那个音 color 颜色应对到 character 人格个性当中的content 内涵。好，所以其实金恩博士他就是用重复的这样子押头韵的音来注意到他的主张，让大家能够听到他的重点。也就是说，对于种族歧视啊，或者是基于肤色的批评，这是不对的，应该要根据大家的这个个性还有人品来去做一个评断。好，不过我们在第3段的第6句这个地方啊，我们特别注意一下这里的 that 到句尾。那到底这里的 that 是什么意思？第一，它在词性上它是一个连接词，因为句子啊在前面有一个 used， 有动词使用，而 that 之后呢，后面还有 must be，一定要如何如何，也就是说2个动词当中首先一定要有一个连接词，再来这2个句子当中到底是什么关系？其实这里的 that 是一个语义等号的关系，所以如果你以后看到 that 前面有一个名词，你一定会觉得这一定是关系子句，可是关系子句它是一个形容词的概念哦，在这里 that 到句尾并不是用来形容它的主张 assertion， 而是用来说明这个主张到底是什么。所以这里 that 的连接词其实它是一个等号的概念，所以我们会说它是一个连接词，没有意义的所谓的加上补语，让后面的 racism 一直到 character 就是语义上完全相等于 assertion 它的主张，这种所谓连接词补语的概念。好，我们明天还会再看更多有关于押头韵的片语，明天见咯，我是安娜，拜拜。
That's it for today, everybody, but please join us again next time when we continue to talk about alliteration. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please join us then. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.